Welcome to the Me and Pops Unplugged podcast, where authenticity and honest conversations are valued. Unplug from the world and vibe with us. Enjoy the show. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Me and Pops Unplugged. It's been a long time coming for this next episode, and we're just excited to get in here. So, really what this next episode is about is something that's going to be relatable to everybody. Once again, we don't talk about shit that's not relatable. So this is about starting over in life, which me and Pops have a ton of experience with. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about losing jobs, breakups, reinventing identity, all that good stuff. Really just turning rock bottom into leverage. And then authenticity is what we're all about. So authenticity here builds, loyal listeners, which we hope you guys follow along. But this is episode number 3. Let's get it, boy. So starting over in life, right? Pops, what do you think the biggest challenge, especially recently, right? Like we're going through a lot of different things, crazy hours at work, a lot of transition. It's all positive transition, but I mean, what's something that you had to start over that was a real challenge for you?
Well, as far as starting over, I mean, I had to basically, I mean, for people that don't know my story, I was at a bad place without going into detail. And I just basically had to tear everything down, pretty much and rebuild from scratch because, full transparency, I was going in and out of jail. Um, was living in a cycle of abuse, getting high, selling drugs, just, all negativity. And just coming back to the same places, kept ended up in jail, kept, kind of doing the poor me thing, like why do I keep ending up here? But really it had to do with me. I had to kind of, tear myself down and to build myself back up, and I always go back, it's kind of a recovery term, but I think it really, kind of goes in hand with anything in life. Like if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I just really had to do some internal work, like heavy internal work on myself and get to the core of myself and like what the real issues were. And, I was pretty much the underlying factor in all the pain and trauma and everything that was going on in my life. Like for years, I blamed everybody else and pointed fingers and used excuses and felt entitled to certain things like I deserve better, I deserve this, I shouldn't have had this hard road or whatever. But what it really came down to is I was an adult, and I had to take a look at myself and take some accountability that regardless of what had happened in the past, I was an adult now, and if I wanted my life to change, I had to change it. And that started with me. I had to break myself down and kind of be honest with myself and, really do some meat and potatoes type of work on myself if I wanted different in life. So for me, that's where it all started. I had to just tear myself down totally 100% and, start from scratch again.
Nah, listen, I love that. And I mean, just from, for anybody that doesn't know this, me and Pops weren't always on good terms. I mean, we just reconnected, probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And just from reconnecting that time, I feel like for you personally, your faith got you there.
Yeah.
You talk about getting,
Yeah.
broken down, breaking down yourself, but, believing in something bigger than yourself too. I feel like
Mhm.
that just was the launching pad for you in terms of getting better, spiritually, financially, and mindset wise too.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's going to be the topic of this podcast today. I mean,
Yeah.
starting over, the mindset that's required, you know, reinventing, yourself in new positive ways and kind of killing that old version of you too.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah.
I
And,
love that.
and as to what you said, as far as our relationship, you know, I feel like a lot of times, men, we're not honest with ourselves. Not just men, I mean, people in general, but, a lot of times, we could be like, oh, I don't know what his problem was. But when it really came down to it, I started doing the work on myself. I realized a lot of things about myself that, people can't, a lot of times people aren't honest with themselves. And, I've always been involved in you and your brother's lives, like, so, we kind of lost touch, but what I'm saying is like I was never like left for years with no contact with anybody or anything like that. But when I really, looked at everything, I wasn't the greatest father, you know what I mean? And we make excuses. And back when I was in, my old life, I would make excuses to justify my actions or my lack thereof, I should say. And what it really came down to was being, even though I was there, for key points throughout your guys' lives and stuff like that. I wasn't the best father. And, I had to own that and be accountable for that. And, realize that I made a lot of mistakes, but also realizing that I can't live in the past. And, if I want that type of relationship, and to be the father that I should be, then, I have to do what it takes, now and going forward. And, I do have regrets with certain things when it comes to that stuff. But, I had to be honest with myself and say, like, you made some mistakes and you could have been better. But, and as I said, I have some regrets about that. But, you know, that stuff, we can't change the past. So now I try to carry myself in a different way and, be a better man first because I can't be a father or a partner or, whatever term you want to use or whatever the relationship dynamic is. I can't be none of those things until I'm a better man. So, in order to be a better father or a better partner, I had to become a better man. And that's kind of as I started, you know, talking about breaking myself down, I had to do the internal work on myself to become a better man in order to become a better father and so on. So, I had to
Ah,
own that stuff.
I mean, look, the fact you even have awareness about that, I mean, some men are be like, oh, they'll still try and justify it under the guise of,
Exactly.
oh, I put in the work, but the awareness just isn't there. Or they
Yeah.
do know and just don't give a fuck. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I did what I did.
Yeah.
It's kind of is what it is type of mentality. But no, I mean, I can appreciate you saying that. And, the proof is in the pudding. I've seen you put in the work and, you know, I mean, that's all I ever wanted for you.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that. But
Absolutely.
um, on another topic too, it's just, you know, what I got from what you were just saying is like fill your cup up first. And that's something I always got to remind myself because, whether it's effort or attention, your attention is pulled in so many different directions that sometimes you're just you're expending energy where you should be prioritizing yourself, whether it's family, whether it's dating, whether it's career, that before you know it, you expended all this energy and then you're sitting there left with nothing. And you're like, why the fuck do I feel like this? There's been so many times in my life personally that I've done that, busting my ass at these jobs, putting in all this effort in relationships where it's not being reciprocated, putting in all this effort at the gym just to go on like 2, 3, 4 months of like a nice little run. The diet's locked in. I feel good physically just to crash out because I'm exhausted at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
I feel like, what you're saying is valid, but with the faith for you personally, I feel like that was the thing for you to be grounded to
Yeah.
help you,
Absolutely.
really manage that energy because that's what it
Yeah.
is, energy management.
Yeah. And real quick, speaking to what you're saying, can you hear my prayer alarm going off in the background?
Nah, I
Because
can't hear
it's
that.
going off on my phone, so I won't stop it because I don't want
Nah,
to
it's all
interrupt the stream. But it's funny that you say that because now, in Islam, it's called the Adhan. That's our call to prayer. So it goes off on my phone 5 times a day.
listen,
So
that's not a
obviously,
coincidence.
being as we're doing this, I'm gonna have to delay my prayer a little bit, but that's fine. But I just didn't know if you could hear it in the background. But
Yeah, no,
anyway,
it's
yeah,
actually hilarious.
yeah. Speaking, it's funny though. It's there's no mistakes in life. Like things happen for a reason. I don't believe
Not,
in
not at all.
coincidence. So it's funny that as soon as you started talking about faith, that went off. But anyway, yeah, the faith. Because as you know, I've been doing this recovery thing, like from the drugs and stuff like that. I've been, attempting it and trying it for years. And I would get, X amount of time clean, like a year or 6 months or whatever the time would be. And then, I would get complacent. And again, I was never really dealing with the underlying issues underneath because, in addiction, the abuse is more of the symptom. It's not the root cause. The root cause is the trauma and the pain. And there's a reason, that we use and, the abuse itself and the addiction itself is the symptom, because think back to when you were in school, obviously you're my son, but every kid when they were in school, they had that day, like career day, or they bring people in and they ask kids like, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know what I mean? And not one kid ever raised a, they say fireman, president, I want to be
I know
this,
where you're
I want to be
going.
a cop.
No one
Not
says,
one
oh,
kid, yeah,
I want to be fucking homeless on the street and
yeah,
fucking
exactly.
doing
Not
all this
one kid
crazy
ever
shit.
raised their hands. And I firmly believe this. I mean, there's not one kid that ever raised their hand and was like, I can't wait to grow up and be, an addict or
No,
homeless or in jail. Nobody ever said that. And what I'm getting at is, like it deals with the trauma. And going back to what I was saying, like I've had time clean, I've had 6 months, a year, over a year, but I never dealt with the underlying trauma. So I would get complacent and stop doing certain things I was doing. But that thing was always going to reveal itself again because I wasn't dealing with the core issue at hand.
right.
And the faith, that's how we got onto this topic, is once, for maybe somebody who's watching that doesn't know, I became a Muslim probably a little over 3 years ago. And once I really and I had even had a relapse after that, but I was just in the beginning stages. But once I really got into it and really started practicing the principles and everything, that was the missing ingredient. And also, going to therapy and, dealing with counselors and therapists and doing the core work on myself. Once I added that and then the faith, as you were saying, they were the missing ingredients. And now, it's become so much easier for me. Like everything kind of fit. Like the missing pieces of the puzzle have all come together.
Oh yeah.
And those elements have completed everything where now it's like life is amazing. And the peace of mind I have with doing the internal work and then the faith part, it's just been absolutely amazing and like a breath of fresh air. And now it all makes sense. When, I've had time where I was clean a year and all, and it still didn't make sense. Now it all makes sense, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And for y'all that don't know this, I'm Christian. We were brought up Christian. I know you were too. I'm
Mm.
just happy that that transition over to being, you know, Muslim helped you so much because it's different strokes for different folks. I
Yeah,
mean, whatever you believe in, hey,
yeah,
props to you. But you actually stand on the shit that you're practicing,
yeah,
which I respect. So,
yeah.
there's a lot of people out here that be like, I'm Christian, but it's like, stop. Who are you trying to fool? You don't
Well,
even practice the shit that you're talking about.
yeah,
So,
people hide behind monikers. They use these
oh, of
monikers,
course.
these terms, and they kind of hide behind that, and it doesn't show their true character. And again, it's not directed at anyone. It's not directed at Christians, Muslims, Jews, whatever it is. You have people who are not truthful. They're not, they hide behind these monikers, and it's not really a true
Yeah, it's a front. I
representation
mean,
of who they are.
no, for sure. And that's not geared
But
towards anybody practicing any specific type of faith, but
yeah,
there's literally people that I've met that claim they're a Christian and yet are out here moving crazy. I'm like,
yeah,
come on,
yeah,
shit
and
don't
it's
make
funny
sense.
too because you said about standing on it, and there's an old saying like if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And I constantly remind that because even me, people think sometimes, oh, Muslims, they pray 5 times a day, they don't eat pork, they fast, they give the charity, they do all these things that we're human. It's in us, inherently as a human that we're going to sin. We're going to make mistakes. We all fall short. But Islam has turned into a thing for me where, and I saw a couple reels online and things like that where, and it was a great example. Um, it was actually a rapper, Davies. You probably heard of him before. He's a
Oh yeah,
Muslim, and he said what Islam is for him is like, remember when you were a kid and you were ready to do something you're not supposed to do. The thing you always thought is, if my mom and dad find out,
they're
that
gonna
was
whoop
like
my
the
ass.
fear. That was the fear in your
Right,
mind. Like, I can't do this because they might find out. Well, now that I'm an adult, he said this, and I really resonate with this because he said Islam now is like, that's what when he's ready to do something he's not supposed to do. And this happens to me every day when I'm ready to say something, do something. I think of, is this what, Allah, which is an Arabic word
right.
for God, um, is this what he would want? So instead of that's my moral compass. Like when I was younger, when all of us we were worried, our moral compass was our parents. Like, what if they find out? Would they like this? Now for me, it's different. Now my faith is that. So when I'm ready to make a mistake or sin, and I'm still going to fall short, I fall short every day in some area, but that's my
Yeah,
moral compass now
it's
is
that
my faith.
morality check. It's like, hey, bro,
Exactly, exactly.
you got to do, you're about to bug out on this person. Like, take it easy. It's not that
Yeah.
serious.
And another thing is too, it doesn't matter what faith you are or what you believe in, even if you're a person who doesn't follow a specific religion or just spiritual. Um, it comes down to like what you do not only when people knows, but what you do when nobody's around. Like what you do when there's nobody around. Like for me, we pray 5 times a day. There's times where I just switched to third shift, but when I was on second shift, I would pray my last prayer late because it would come in, kind of at the end of my shift after lunch, and I wasn't able to pray it, at work. So I'll wait till I come home and pray it late. And there's plenty of times where I could be like, I could skip this prayer because nobody's going to know. They see me pray on my lunch, they see me pray before my shift, this and that. But see, that's the
Right,
thing. It's not for them. You know, I know. I know
right.
I'm skipping that prayer, even though nobody else knows. I know I'm skipping that, and it doesn't sit right with me. Again, it's that moral compass thing. You know what I mean? Um, my faith and God, Allah, whatever we refer to him as Allah, but again, it's just an Arabic word which means God. Um, he has done so much for me in my life, coming from where I come from and being on drugs and homeless and in and out of jail. That how can I not, give him 5 or 10 minutes of my time to praise him, for all he's done for me. And so what if it's 10, 11 o'clock at night and nobody's going to know? I'm going to know. And I owe
Right.
that to him because he's done
That's
so much
between
for me.
you and your relationship with him.
Exactly. So again, it's about what you do when nobody's looking. A saying, and another example is you see people out there helping people, in the streets, maybe helping homeless people or helping the disadvantaged in some way, and they always got a camera. If you have to have a camera to show your good deeds, are you really doing it for the right reason? And
You're
that's what
not
you need to ask
for
yourself.
attention
Like for
or
me,
clout.
I help people, friends, strangers, whatever, and I don't talk about it because if I have
Yeah,
to
you're
talk
doing it
about it,
because it's the right thing.
exactly. If I have to talk about it, it was
Oh,
never,
excuse me.
it was never coming from the right place anyway. So,
Right. Well, what you're
well, go
talking
ahead.
about is integrity,
Yeah,
doing the right
absolutely.
thing when nobody's looking. And
Yeah.
it's actually hilarious because this is recent for me. I got two different situations that
Mm,
involve not having integrity. So, first thing, right? So, at my job, I was telling you about that test, right? That assessment that we had to do to be a
yeah.
maintenance mechanic,
Yeah.
or at least like progress to get the promotion, the raise. Well,
Mm.
unfortunately, I found out I took the assessment. They emailed me today. I did not pass, which sucks,
That's
but I'm
all right.
like, all right, whatever, shit happens.
Well, we
So,
talked, not to interrupt you, but we talked what yesterday, and I said, If it's God's plan, as we say, mashallah, if it's
Yeah.
his plan, then it's his
Look,
plan. If it's
and I
not,
literally
then
said
he's
the
going to
same
open
thing,
another
just the
door for
Christian
you.
version. I
Yeah,
was like, hey, look, if this is the plan that God has for me, great. But, even if it doesn't happen, no big deal. So
yeah,
I found out, got one work homie, who's cool. Like he's shown love since day one. We both started around the same time,
yeah.
and he went for the same position. Now, the test wasn't proctored or anything, but I was talking to him. I was like, yo, how do you think you did on the test? Blah, blah, blah. And turns out this motherfucker cheated and used his phone. Now, when he told me that, I'm looking at him, I'm like, damn. And then, I was kind of like a little smart ass, but still being funny. I'm like, well, congrats, bro. You probably got that shit.
Yeah.
But, but, I was trying to be funny, but in the back of my head, I'm like, damn, that told me a lot about your character. And literally, I
Absolutely.
had the awareness to like recognize it in real time. And this literally just happened last week. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, this motherfucker really doesn't have any integrity. Like, even though it wasn't proctored, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do the right thing. It's either I know this shit or I don't know it.
Mm.
And, turns out there was a lot of shit I still had to study for it because, I wasn't able to pass. But simple things like that, that you could just kind of evaluate people's character. And I know you believe in that too. Like, I don't make any judgments towards people with appearance or how they look. Um, nothing like that. I judge people off their character and not even judge, just
Absolutely.
evaluate people on their character because that's going to be the biggest tell.
Mm.
Okay, how do they live their life? What are their daily habits? Are they good
Yeah,
for you? Should they be in my circle? Like, these are all
yeah,
questions just people in general should ask, but especially young men, because
yeah,
they be getting in these friendships and relationships that just aren't healthy for them to begin with.
yeah. And you
So
got to
it's
remember
just
that,
crazy.
he has to live with that. So say he gets the position. In the back of his mind, he always is going to be reminded that he didn't earn that. It's something he didn't earn. And karma's a real thing. Like that's going to come back to him. And look, I
Sure.
don't wish him any ill will. I don't even know the person,
Nah,
obviously. But, he has to live with that, knowing that he didn't get that honestly, and you know, there again, karma's a real thing. Like, you know, something might come back. Maybe there's a technical part of that job that he acted like he knew on the test, but then that's going to real life situations going to arise from that, and he's not going
yeah.
to know how to
And
respond.
then
And they're going to be like, "Wait, I thought you knew how to do this."
and that's the
So
thing. Like,
it's
this
a
is
it's
heavy
a
machinery too.
misrepresentation, and you're right. It's an integrity thing. It's a misrepresentation of who he is or his capabilities. So I agree with you. It's funny, man. Like now, certain things like if I could get extra money. And, we all need money. Money makes the world go round. We got bills to pay. But now, like the old me, if there was a way to get extra money and it was a dishonorable way, I was getting it. But I can't, like now, even if I could get money that I need, but I have to do it in something that misrepresents me and my integrity, I can't do it. Like I'll give you a
Well,
perfect
it's like you
example of
said,
that.
who would know? I would fucking know. I'd
Exactly.
be
That's
I'd
what
be
it comes
showing
down
up to
to at the
work,
end of the
clocking
day.
in every day, knowing, damn, I'm making
Yeah.
money I really didn't earn. Like,
Yeah.
all
And
money isn't good money,
I'll give you a
especially.
perfect, go
Uh,
ahead. I'm sorry. I'll give you a perfect example from just my life. I have the drug history and stuff, and, some opioid addiction, obviously, in my past. I could go to any Suboxone doctor. You know what Suboxone is? That's, to keep you
yeah, it's to wind
opiate
you off
crave.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It keeps your opiate cravings at bay and, things like that. I could go to any Suboxone doctor right now, tomorrow, and get them to prescribe me Suboxone without even having the intention to take it because I know like people out there will buy it. Like people are like, yo, get the subs and I'll buy them off you.
right.
And I used to do things like that in the past, but now, even though I know I could go get them and make like an extra three, four, $500 a month that I could use, I can't do it because I don't feel comfortable. I know it's not the right thing to do because, you know, somebody else, because they can be abused, somebody else could abuse them. Um, pass it on to somebody else. Somebody could get hurt behind it. I don't want any parts of that. I don't want
Yeah,
to
and
bring any
that's attached to you
misfortune.
in some way,
Yeah,
shape, or form.
exactly. I don't want to bring any misfortune to anybody else. And even if nothing bad was to happen from it, it doesn't sit right in my soul. It's like you said, it comes down to character and integrity. And even though I could use the money, I don't want to put myself in that because I have to live with that. And then on the flip side of that is, you know, even if I were to do it, which again, I wouldn't, now I got to go meet somebody to sell them. And then I might be in a certain area or a certain situation, or even if it's a so-called friend, might have himself in a legal predicament and be
You
like,
fucking
set
know,
me up.
he could
So
be the one
it
setting
just
you up. Yeah,
opens the door to so many possibilities. And again, I don't want any negativity in my life. I don't want any, to put myself in any position that's going to compromise not only my integrity, but my freedom or anything or injure anybody else. So yeah, it comes down to, integrity and character at the end of the day, you know?
100%. I mean, that just implies you have a conscience.
Yeah.
Having a technical background like myself and a sales background, it's like, like you got these sales managers, they're like, yeah, sell, sell, sell. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I get it. Like, I want to hit quota and shit, but they're talking like selling different products to elderly people who don't even know what the fuck's going
Yeah,
on.
I've been there.
It's like, come on, bro. Like I get it, but the way you're saying to go about this, just I need to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, at the end of the day, does anybody want to go? Like my job is physical, I build pallets, and, it's blue collar job. I make good money. I'm in the Teamsters Union and everything. But at the end of the day, do I want to go break my back to lift shit and get on and
Oh
off a
no.
machine all day? Of course not. But at the end of the day, I can rest my head on a pillow knowing that I put it on, it stays working, I earn my money. I don't have to look over my shoulder any longer. I don't have to worry about, being locked up again. And, it feels good. Yeah, my back doesn't feel good, but, you know, internally
That's
in
just
my
rest and
soul,
recovery.
yeah, in
And
my
burnout
soul, I
fast.
feel good. And, I'm going out there and taking care of myself and my family and, doing the right thing and staying out of trouble. So, again, it comes down to integrity, and putting out the right, energy into the world and doing the right things.
Look, I'm right there with you. I'm in the union environment too. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I love working hard. I love using my hands, and
yeah,
you should feel like a fucking man. You're like, yeah, I did some shit today,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I
just keep
mean,
it up. But
like I said, it physically hurts, but it feels good to, go and put an honest day's work in and not
right,
have to look over
exactly,
your shoulder.
which is what a
I've
man
looked
should
over
be.
my shoulder for most of my life, and it's not a good feeling. That anxiety, the worrying, worrying if you're going to go to jail, worrying if somebody's going to try to take you out. Like, you just never know. Wonder if I'm going to take myself out. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, I'm on the back end of my life. I don't know how much is left, and I'm trying to enjoy it. I'm trying to live the right way, and I'm trying to, make amends for the things that I have done wrong in my life, you know.
Look, that's all we can do. And
Yeah,
I think that's probably the biggest component on why we're even doing this
yeah,
podcast. It's just to help other people. And,
yeah,
you know, obviously, your pops, you got a little bit more wisdom than me, but,
yeah.
I feel like for somebody who, barely is into their 30s, um, just over, I feel like I got a good amount of wisdom just for the younger guys and younger people in general. So that's exactly what we're
Hmm.
doing.
Yeah, I mean, as humans, we're supposed to help each other. It's so crazy that how we're in this new era of people just want to hate on each other and jealousy and even if they're not hating and they have information, they want to gatekeep it or they want to charge people for it. Like, man, experience is the best teacher. So like we're supposed to, help one another, especially people like myself. You're my son, but I'm supposed to help younger people, help especially younger men. I'm a man, so coming from a man's perspective, you have that term, oh, that's my OG. And, right away people think, original gangster, or, whatever the acronym, but really the acronym should stand for offering game. An OG is an older brother that offers game to a younger brother and tries to help him not make the same mistakes that he made, and that's what we're supposed to do.
Like the wise mage of the village. You know what I'm saying? Like they
Yep.
would go to you for guidance and,
Yeah.
for whatever. You're like, hey, I'm going through this issue. And I mean, I feel like the leadership aspect of, just being a man, if you're on the right path and you're doing everything locked in,
Hmm.
um, just physically, spiritually, mentally, I mean, you should be a leader by default.
Yeah.
I think leadership, not everybody has that ability, but to me, it's a skill. And just like any other skill that can be improved upon.
Yeah. I agree.
Oh, yeah. So I know we were talking about a lot there, which was good, but I
Yeah.
wanted to go over this topic. So losing things, right? Which is interesting to me because there's a whole mindset shift that goes with this. So when I say losing things, I mean like, whether it's money, whether it's a career, whether it's a relationship, um, things of that nature. But, how to really deal with that and how to bounce back that where even if you get hit in the mouth, you're not down for the count. You're like, all right, I took that out. Let me take that on the chin. But you're actually able to recover. And with each mishap, so to speak, it doesn't hurt as bad.
Yeah.
So I got a lot to go into this one. I'm just gonna say that. But what um what do you feel like helped you? Like where if something bad happened in your life or there was a loss of some sort, what helped you get through that within your life itself?
Well, first and foremost, I'll say this. If we lose something in life, it was never really meant for you anyway. Think about it that way.
That's exactly where I was going.
Anything you lose was never really yours. It was never really intended for you. Things come for a season, a reason, and some people come and you think like, oh, especially if you're dealing with relationships, like, oh, we'll always be together. It's the love of my life. But maybe that person just came to teach you more about yourself or lessons for the next relationship, not only about them or what to look for, but about yourself, and where you failed and so that you can be better for the next person. Like again, some people come for a season, some people come for a reason. And I'm just a firm believer in that now. I didn't always think that way, but again, I'm not the same person I once was. Like I feel like I grow every day. Of course, we have days that are tough and, might be a down day, but I don't believe in bad days. But I feel like I'm constantly growing. It might not be daily, like I'm, might take a step back, but eventually I'm going to take two forward. But
Right.
as I was saying, I feel like anything you lose was never really meant to be yours anyway. Maybe you were meant to have it for a time, but not if you lost it, it wasn't meant for you, for good. And learning that piece right there and that using that perspective of it, things have been much easier. Like I was in a long relationship for almost 15 years. And, I was kind of delusional with that thinking like, oh, we're going to be together forever and, all that. And like now when I look back, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? But again, I'm not the
We've
same
all been there.
person. And, but again, and this is something that kind of plays into that. You hear a lot of people, especially, and I'm just going to deal with the relationship aspect. Like when they talk about their exes, they're like, F them, and it's just like all this bad, bad, bad. And honestly, I feel like a lot of times we should be thanking them. Like, you know what?
No,
Thank you because you taught me, especially if you're going to go into the negatives instead of saying, them, they're this, they're that. Thank you because you made me realize certain things, not only about what to look for with the next relationship, but also about myself and where I fell short and what I could do better. And it's like constantly, you know, there's lessons and there's blessings. Like you're either going to be blessed or you're going to learn a lesson from it. And,
I'm
I
laughing
try
because I
to,
did the same shit. I'm like, yeah, fuck that bitch. Like, and
yeah,
then you reach a certain level of growth, you're like, damn, you know what?
yeah,
Like,
like
you're right.
we should
Thank you because you
instead of
taught me a
hating
lot of
on them,
shit.
we should be thanking them because, we've learned valuable lessons along the way. Same thing with jobs and mistakes, going to jail and, making mistakes that I've made. Like and I know it sounds so cliche for people to say, but like people like say, oh, I have no regrets, I'm blessed and but I really like and people go back if I could change this I could change that but like honestly of course like people would make this fairy tale if I can go back and change everything make this fairy tale but it's not realistic and I really wouldn't change anything because I would not be the person that I am today if I didn't go through all the things I went through and to be honest with you I was on a self-destructive journey anyway that I probably wouldn't even be here realistically. You know what I
Right.
mean? So yeah, it's just funny the way, our perspective on certain things, whether it's relationships or past mistakes or whatever. Um, we went through those things for a reason and, I kind of lost the topic a little bit there. But yeah, if you lose something, it was never yours anyway. It was to teach you a lesson, on what you did wrong or what they did wrong or situation, how to moving forward, how to better handle that situation or, relationship or whatever the case may be. So that's how I feel. And it's just like with anything, if you change your perspective on the way you look at things and your mindset, then helps you have a better appreciation of understanding those things.
No, listen, 100%. And that's exactly where I was going with this too. I mean, it's not so much a loss as it was, a learning experience. And
Absolutely.
it reminds me like I used to do it to myself all the time, like all these different sales jobs. And I bounced around for a little bit, especially in my 20s before I got into, further sales roles and, just being, HVAC stuff and
Mhm.
construction, union work. I always tied my worth to the job, where the job was like everything. Like if I wasn't excelling or, going above and beyond, I would feel like shit about myself. But
Mhm.
that's such a double-edged sword because it's like, okay, cool, you're making money, you're doing XYZ, you're getting ahead, boss is happy. But then, you're sitting there burned out. You're sitting there where if you're not at work, even on your off days, you're like, fuck, like
Yeah.
I don't really feel like I'm doing anything. Like even if I hit the
Yeah.
gym or something like that. And this is just my experience personally. Now I'm just like, it's a job, man. And it's the whole mindset shift. And it really puts in perspective how powerful your mind is. I mean, that's why they say mind over matter.
It
Cliche
really
as
is.
hell, but it's the truth. And just seeing my personal growth and hearing about your growth and us reconnecting the past couple of years. I mean, that's really the main difference. Faith, discipline, doing the right things by your actions, at least according to your code,
Mhm.
you know, your moral code anyway. And yeah, I mean, I was so hyped to do this episode again because I know it's been a couple
Yeah,
months.
and we're kind
I
of
know
like
you've
jumping
been grinding
around with
too. Like I'm over here 65, 70 hours a week, and there
mhm.
was just a lot of shit going on. But hey,
Yeah,
episode number three.
yeah. And like I was ready to say, we're kind of jumping around different topics, but it's good because we're just talking about real things, things
Yeah,
that are real in life and that affect us. And you know, I, it's kind of hard just to stick to one thing anyway because we're not going off the script. We're just having an honest conversation. And it's funny too because I heard the part where you said about tying your worth, to something. And, that's, I feel like us as humans, we do that so much. And it's not only the job or, the money, the status, it's even like in relationships, like
you know,
especially, it just reminded me of that because, as a man, I grew up, with the mindset of, like as a man, we're supposed to just like conquer as many women and have like the most beautiful, you know, eye attractive,
Right. And
visually
be the guy.
attractive
Like be the
woman.
guy that
Yeah,
everybody
be
wants
like
to
the
be.
typical, but I mean, when you really look at it, it's like the meathead mentality.
Yeah.
You're just like a barbarian, like, and at that point, if you really want to be honest, you're kind of like a predator, and because that's all you're looking for, like, oh, I want that. It's just you're objectifying. And it's funny, it reminds me of a conversation me and Angela had and recently, and talking about how women are so objectified. And we as men, because we're not women, we don't understand because we don't know what they go through. But just imagine like waking up every day and you go out into a world that values you more on how you look or how visually you look over the substance of your character, the content of your character, and your wisdom and knowledge. And they
Oh, for
value
sure.
you. They value you. Men value you more based off of your visual than who you are and what you're made up of. And it's just really freaking sad, to be honest with you. And I've done it for so many years. And when you said that, just we tie a lot of men tie their worth like, oh, I got the hottest woman, like I got the hottest chick out here, and I got the money in the car, and we tie our worth to certain like objects, whether or a person, like just how they look or how your car is or how much your bank account
It's
says, and
all it's all facade.
it means absolutely nothing. And going back to when I was younger, I you know female attraction, I got a lot of attention from females growing up. That's like when I had hair and, didn't have all the gray and stuff like that. But anyway, like that stuff came easy. And looking back now, like I'm just kind of almost embarrassed of the person that I used to be because that's what I value. I didn't value, the substance of a woman, and I didn't value the emotional part and the emotional connection. It was just about, and really, it comes down to ego. Like, was I really with her because of she was appealing to my eye, or about everybody was like, oh, he got the hottest chick out here. Like, think about it. Like, just like with the car, like, does somebody drive, a Bentley or a Porsche or something like that? Do they
It's a
drive that because
status.
they like the car? Exactly. They tie their worth. That makes them feel better about themselves. Just like a man having, this most beautiful woman in the room, that makes him feel better about himself. So it really comes down to ego. And it's just, and again, we're kind of going off on another topic, but when you said that, like we tie our worth to stuff that really doesn't matter. And now, as you know, I talk about it all the time. Like I have somebody who her worth on the inside and the type, the person that she is, her character and her substance, actually made me fall in love with her. And now that I'm the man, like I couldn't be with one of them women who's
Right.
just,
There's no
appealing to
going
the
back
eye.
after that.
Like I
For
need
sure.
character and content, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier about
Yeah.
integrity and morality and everything. And it's so sad that we tie ourselves, to these certain like status symbols, and it really, at the end of the day, it comes down to ego. What are we doing it for? Are we doing it for ourselves? Because if we were, those things wouldn't be important. We're doing it for what other people think of us. So anyway,
No,
I
100%.
kind of went off on another little
Nah, I
topic
mean,
there, but
look, at this
you
point,
saying that sparked
like you
that.
said, we're having a conversation. And,
Yeah,
that's the unplugged part of me and
yeah,
Pop's unplugged. Like, we're
absolutely.
not going to sit here and be like, okay, rebuilding discipline daily.
Yeah,
And, we're reading through this whole thing. Like, that's not what we're
yeah,
about. Authenticity. And yeah, we bounce around a lot, but, we're talking about real shit, which is,
mhm,
what the world needs. So
yeah,
love that. Um, yeah, I mean, I like what you're talking about. Anything done out of ego, in my opinion, it's just going to jam you up. Ego,
yeah,
pride.
absolutely.
I mean, everything I've done out of ego always came back to bite me in the ass.
Yeah,
It's when
like
I actually like tuned in with God and, talked to him, whether I'm praying or not. And I'm like, you know what? strip everything down
Yeah.
to a very, very basic level. And it's crazy right now for me, like, you know, I'm in a small little apartment. Like my situation is very basic, but over the past 6 months, like, I'm in a new spot. I got rid of, old friendships that just were way fucking overdue to be excommunicated out of my life,
Yeah.
frankly. Old relationships, especially with women, that didn't work out. Like I was just focused on all the wrong shit. Now my situation is very basic where I'm keeping God first. I'm in the gym, getting my bread up, focused on all the right things to where, I know eventually my life is gonna be exactly how I want it because I'm able to just focus on what's important right now. So yeah, there's no ego involved. I'm doing all this shit for me, and like that's it. So I love that.
And look, and basic is good. Don't forget that. Like, think about it. Like you're talking about growth and all that, right? So, when you plant something, to say like a flower, growth is when it blooms. So in order for your life to bloom, you're starting with basic. You're starting with a seed. You're planting that seed. You're starting with small, and that's good. You keep your overhead low, keep your life simple, and you're planting the seeds now. And eventually you're going to look back and you're going to have this blooming, beautiful, flower that you've planted that is now grown into something, and you're starting from the bottom and you're rebuilding yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful thing. Having, because you got to remember, sometimes when you take on too much, you're going to get overwhelmed. And if you're overwhelmed, then your energy's off, you're stressed, you're frustrated, and you're not going to be able to maintain the things you have already. So it's better to start off basic and you gradually grow into it. Nothing grows overnight. You got to start with, just like I said, if we're using a flower, a plant has to be planted first, the seeds, the bulb, whatever the case may be, and then it blooms into something beautiful. So I'm proud of you. You're setting up your roots, and that's where it all starts with. It starts with that. You're planting yourself in the ground. You start slow and don't take on too much so you don't get overwhelmed. And again, people, if anybody's watching, or hopefully somebody's watching, but but things don't happen overnight, especially when it comes to growing as a person. Forget the money and all that stuff. Like just growing as a person, it doesn't happen overnight. Like me and you talked about this before. Like before I met Angela, um, I stayed single for like 2.5 years. I didn't have any sexual relations for 2.5 years. Grown man could have had
Yeah,
them,
but you know
but I
what?
didn't.
Like
But
even
but
some
but
guys,
again,
I'm glad you brought that up too, because even
but
some
wait, hold
guys
on, real
like,
quick. We'll get back to it. I just wanted to make this point. Like I could have had it, but it was with the wrong. It would have been watering the plant, the roots that I was planting. It would have been watering them with the wrong, you know, instead of water, using oil to try to water them or something, if
right,
that's a good analogy, because I didn't want to, I wanted to wait for something real and, not just in the relationship, but I needed to build myself up again. I needed to plant myself in the ground and let myself bloom and blossom so
grounded.
that I can reach out for the sky or, whatever metaphor you want to use. But, I had to wait and work on myself first, in order to bloom and become the person I am. And then in turn, and we were talking about this yesterday, when you're single, you always hear, just be patient. She'll come when the time is right. And I got so sick of hearing that two,
Yeah,
three
it's like,
years
dude,
ago.
shut up.
And it sounds so cliche. And I'll be like, just stop saying that. But it's so crazy because everybody that said it was right. That saying is right. Like the right thing will happen if you stop looking for it. Just work on yourself, plant your roots and seeds in the ground and let yourself grow, and then you will find what's right for you, whether it be relationship, job, mindset, faith, any area of life. But it starts with us. We got to plan ourselves and do the work on ourselves, water ourselves, and then, it all comes in turn. But anyway, go ahead. What were you ready to say? Did you lose your
Nah,
train of
like it's
thought?
just funny because I 100% agree, but it's like the dudes that constantly need to have like female validation, or they're like, yeah, I got like five bitches on the side. I'm like, bro, honestly, I think there's something wrong with you.
Well,
Especially the men that their life isn't together either. They don't take that time to be alone and really get to know themselves. And it's just like, some women have the monkey branch, they always got a dude. Well, dudes do the same thing. And
yeah.
they never take the time to really grow. And I've seen it. Like there's people I called my friends at one point, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking at them, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, granted, I get, but the only reason I
But
even came to that conclusion, and I'm sitting there like looking at motherfuckers sideways, because I'm not exactly where I want to be yet, and I don't claim to be Mr. Perfect, but I've done a lot of work with myself and the awareness aspect. I'm like, you don't really know a dude until like, you get to see him with women and stuff
mm,
like that. And, just to see how he moves, and you're like, damn, this guy's part of my circle. Like, I don't want to be
yeah,
associated with people like that. Like, fuck that.
absolutely. And to what you're saying, right? It's funny because I used to be the same way, and I'm on the same, level now where, I look back at my old self and then I see other people and I'm like, I don't know, like you said, the awareness, that's the best word for it. Because now I'm so aware of myself. So I can't help but be aware of others.
Right.
And when I see a dude that's like that, that has to have all these women, I realize like I was once like you. And I realized I had so much work to do on myself. Like those people have serious internal work or, some wounds, whether it be, a childhood trauma, a family trauma, whatever. They're that way for a reason because they have not dealt with those certain traumas. And that's, their inner child or inner self or whatever kind of acting out on that. And,
Trying to
it's
fill a
crazy
void.
because it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy though, because I see it too. And I'm not judging anybody, but when you see it, I'm like, damn, he reminds me of my old self. And I realize how much work like somebody like that, needs to do on themselves. And again, like I'll never say use the word healed. I always use the word healing. Like I'm healing still. I will be for the rest of my life. Like, I'm not a healed version. I hate that healed word. I say healing because we all have certain things that we need to heal from, certain traumas or things
Right.
that, got us to a certain position where we were stuck or depressed or, whatever. But you're absolutely right. I see it all the time, especially with men. And, it's easier for us to notice because we're men, so we can relate. But yeah, I mean, when you see somebody like that, they have a lot of internal work to do on themselves. And, that's the reason they act out like that. And, it's like a shallow it's like a shallow aspect. It's like a very low vibrational characteristic for somebody to have. And I once had it, so I'm not knocking anybody. Everybody has their own journey, but yeah, men like that, and women, but speaking from a man's point of view, yeah, definitely have a lot of work to do. And you don't want to surround yourself like that because they're going to bring, lower your vibration and bring you down to their level. We talked about this yesterday when we were on the phone.
Yeah.
You want to
Energy is
be
everything.
you want to be a winner, you hang with winners. Just like they say, you hang with a bunch of millionaires, eventually you're going to be a millionaire. So it depends on, what you want out of life. If you want to be, in great shape, hang around with a bunch of fitness dudes, whatever it is, you have to surround yourself. Your circle has to be with like-minded people. So,
Yeah.
me,
And
I
like,
don't really hang around with anybody. I go to work, I come home, I go to the masjid.
yeah,
I don't
I'm the
really do
same
a
way.
whole lot.
I'm like, people will ask me, they're like, oh, you go out with friends. I'm like, listen, honestly, I'm at a stage where, I might have some buddies that, are drinking buddies, but frankly, I don't even drink like that anymore. Like, I don't
Yeah.
really go out. I don't got time for all the fuck shit. Like, I don't
Yeah.
really associate with people like that, because I know, number one, they're not really my true friends. Number
Yeah.
two, there's no value that I'm getting from this friendship. And you could
Yeah.
use the same example as in a relationship too. Like, if we're not improving each other, and there's not like some real world value where it's like, damn, like this person's making me a better person. And, I like, what they bring to the table. That's a phrase everybody fucking uses, but it's like if there's not some form of growth that I'm getting from the type of relationship, whether it's a personal relationship or a friendship, I don't got time for it. Like you said, I
Yeah.
go to work, hit the gym, come home, I'm about my business, and that's the end of it. And I feel like a
Well,
lot of younger men need to be on that wave right now because, the people that, claim they're your homies, they're not really your homies.
yeah. And it's not just men, it's just everybody. Like,
Right.
people hang around or, have people in their circle where they don't serve their life. And I don't mean serve them like, they're waiting on you, that type of thing.
No, I get it.
They it should be something like if you want to better yourself, you should be around people that want to better themselves. Same thing, if you want to be in great shape, you should hang around people who have the same interests. So your circle should be, like-minded people who
Uplifting.
have the same,
That's the
yeah,
word.
exactly. And, if that relationship doesn't serve you and vice versa, you don't serve their life and they don't serve your life, then that relationship needs to be cut off. You know what I mean? And I have plenty of people that I'm cool with and I talk to like at work
Right.
and,
More acquaintances. I'm the same
outside.
way. But
Yeah, and it's like, and I wish them well. I want the best for them. There's
ain't
no
no
ill
hate.
will, but
It's
it's
nothing but
like
love.
I keep my circle extremely small. Like I don't even talk to a whole lot of people. I'm friendly with people, but I stay around who's important to me. I keep in contact with those that are important to me, and I try to be around like-minded individuals. Like if somebody's like, you know, hey, I'm going to the bar. You want to come? Where you going? I'm going to the masjid. Yeah, well, me and that person probably ain't going to hang out. Like, it's just being honest. Like,
Well,
it's
I
not
mean,
going
the
to work.
reason I'm bringing this up too is because I mentioned earlier in the episode there was two situations where I'm like, damn, integrity. That one with the work homie I told you about earlier, but
Yeah,
even for whoever's watching right now, this was Super Bowl Sunday. And again, this isn't when we have these episodes, this isn't like we're preaching or doing anything like that. We're just sharing knowledge and whoever we can help, great.
experience.
But like I told you the story too over the phone, but
Yeah.
like Super Bowl Sunday went out, I got lit up way more. We're at the bar, way more than I should have, and I definitely got carried away. And the next day, not even the next day, the next couple of days, I felt like absolute shit. And as far as like keeping integrity, it was integrity with myself, where I'm like, there was nothing wrong with going out and hanging out with some drinking buddies and having a good time, but I overdid it. And
You
this was
took it to the
literally
next level.
what last Sunday. Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens with alcohol. You just the more you drink,
Hmm.
the more you lose control. I mean, that's
Hmm.
always been, my Achilles heel. Obviously I'm not a fucking alcoholic, but I probably drink more than I should, just like the majority of people.
Well, just speaking
Um,
from experience, real quick, don't ever
yeah,
do crack because just what you're saying
yeah,
about drinking.
yeah.
I smoke a rock, and next thing it's a month later. I'm still robbing stores and still robbing people, and doing anything I can to get another one. And
That's
then
like a
eventually,
fucking
I
nightmare.
usually I usually end, I end up in jail. So trust
Yeah,
me, yeah, I party until I'm either in jail or in rehab, one or the other.
that's
So
a
yeah,
that's the longest party ever. Fucking month
yeah.
long
So that's
party.
why I don't. That's why I don't do it anymore. But
Hell
anyway, I'm sorry. I just had to say that real quick.
no, you're good. But just put in perspective last week, like just stupid shit. And I
Yeah,
was
and
like,
I
why
I
did I
already know
even
what
go
you went
out?
through.
And
We talked about it yesterday, where I was like, "Yeah, you were probably telling yourself you're a loser, and you're depressed, and that's what
not
you do."
even
Because
that, but I was just
but
like,
I
bro,
that's what
like
I used to do.
you know yourself, right? And
Yeah,
this is the conversation I was having with myself. Like,
but you were
you know
beating
yourself
yourself
at
up.
this point.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was definitely beating myself up, but it took me a couple of days to kind of bounce back. And I'm like, all right, I'm me again. Like, you're good, stay focused, worry about the right shit, still going to work, everything was cool. Um, but just staying locked in. Like people say that, oh, lock in, bro. But every day brings new challenges, and you don't know what's going to pop up. But staying focused is the real key.
yeah. And what if you got to remember what we were talking about earlier about learning experience, not just from people, but you learn from yourself. So, that's a little learning experience from yourself. So maybe you go out and have a drink, with a friend, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like if that's your thing, like nothing wrong with that. Go out,
Yeah,
socialize, have one or two, but use that lesson from Super Bowl Sunday that, hey, I remember the last time, and this is what happened. Like, keep that in the back of your mind. That's a lesson that you learned for yourself, and you control that. It's not like a relationship or something else where, you only have so much control. You control that. So you have to control that narrative and tell yourself, like, either A, I'm not going because I know how this ends up,
which is
or
probably the smartest choice.
exactly. But if you do go, hey, tell yourself, even set an alarm in your phone, like for an hour later. Like, hey, I'm gonna go have one drink, two drinks, and then I'm leaving. Hey guys, it was great. I like catching up, nothing personal, just, I only came out for one or two, I'm going home. Nothing
Right.
wrong with that. And if somebody doesn't appreciate that or respect that, you don't want to be out with that person anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And I mean, you said it right there. Like the biggest thing that I was disappointed in is the loss of self-control
Yeah.
because you're right. Like I'm the only one who's in control of me.
Mm,
And, progressively, just the more drunk you get, the control is just not there. And then,
absolutely.
when you black out, you don't even fucking remember walking home, which
Yeah.
the bar, granted, was like 2 blocks away from me, but, I'm sneaking through a window, I'm fucking losing my keys. I'm like, you
Yeah.
just wake up the next day, like, bro, stop being a
Well,
dummy.
trust me, if anybody's been there, I've been there way more times than you. Trust me. So I
Well,
have a
that's why I'm
lot of
telling you,
experience.
because I
Yeah, I
know
have
you
a
get it.
lot of experience in this. The only difference is instead of losing my keys, whatever, I lose my freedom and I'm laying in a jail cell. Like, so
Yeah,
trust me,
that's no bueno.
try to get that under control now. And I know that, you're not, you don't get, do drugs and you're not a big drinker, but just try to keep that under control. Try to have awareness, like you're saying, and constantly remind yourself, like, hey, I remember this situation before, or just don't put yourself in that situation. It's up to you. Only, I can't tell you what to do. You have to decide that for yourself. But it's either one or the other. Either don't put yourself in that situation or just use that experience. Don't beat yourself up over it. It's over with.
Yeah,
Because that's
no,
another thing. We get so caught up in the past, and I was very guilty of this. Most of my life, I lived in the past so much, and again, through my own mistakes, through childhood, through mistakes with you and your brother, jobs, everything. I lived in the past so much and had I was like guilt ridden and so many regrets and, thinking about what if, even sports, I was a great athlete and just threw everything away. And like thinking back, constantly, like, what if, or, beating myself up, you're a piece of shit, you're a loser, just telling myself
yeah,
these.
you know who that is?
And
That's Shay Tom.
yeah, I already know that.
That
But what
that
I'm
is
saying
Satan.
is, I'm talking about even before, I became Muslim and all that, just learning that like when we live in the past so much, you ruin your present. And if you ruin your present, you're ruining your future. We're so caught up in looking back that you don't even realize what's ahead. And stop beating yourself up. Like learn from that experience and just keep that in your mind, have that awareness, and move forward, with the right intentions, and you'll be fine, you know?
No, I mean, if I'm being completely transparent, just the microcosms of struggles that you've been through personally, and from what you told me, like I've experienced a lot of either the same exact situations, just maybe on a different level, or very, very eerily similar. And,
Mm.
it makes me think like, generational curses, then you get spiritual kind of
Genetics,
shit. I mean, not saying it is that, but I always
I
found it
think it plays
interesting.
a part.
Right. And it could be some shit, from 5 generations ago, we're still dealing
Yeah.
with now. And that's not talked about enough either. But I always found that interesting. And, they say, not saying, hey, you made a lot of mistakes, which you own up to, but, there is an old saying like, hey, the son deals with the sins of the father, so on and so forth, and that can be
Mm.
passed down through
Yeah,
generations. But it's not so much sin; it's just learning learning from the experiences and breaking the fucking cycle where, hey, you know what, my son and then his son, and then
yeah,
no one else has to go through that because the
yeah.
cycle's already been broken.
Well, what you're talking about is generational trauma. We pass that on without
Right.
even realizing we pass it on, and it's something that we have to break, across the line, and it crosses all races, genders, religions, everything. Like, no matter who it is, all men, and women, we pass on generational trauma without even realizing we're doing it. And
Because I mean, I think it's in your genetic code. Like,
yeah. Well, it starts the big thing, like we talked about a few times in the last few minutes. We said awareness. It starts with awareness because if you're not aware of it, you can't do anything about it. So
right.
awareness is the first thing. If you're aware of it, and then you have that constant awareness, and you're working towards breaking those generational traumas and curses and things like that, then you're on the right path. But you have to be aware of it first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gift and a curse. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
too fucking aware, even in social settings. Like, I'll
Hey
notice
man,
the
one thing I'll
slightest
say
thing.
is
Like,
this life is tough. There's no handbook. Nobody hands you a handbook. This is how you do it. And, we're all given different circumstances. Life is tough. Every one of us, even people that seem like they have it all together, everybody's suffering some type of battle that nobody knows about, whether it's internally, or that some of us, have visual battles. We could see people suffering with, maybe physical ailments or mental illness or, whatever the case may be. But we're all fighting some kind of battle. And most of those battles we don't talk about, like sometimes it's hard to even tell people what you're going through, especially if it's like a mental health type of thing or, certain feelings,
I
we're
mean, I'll
afraid
take
of
it even
judgment.
further. It's never talked about. It's almost
Yeah,
like a
well,
taboo thing. Like, oh,
absolutely.
you're going to therapy. Like, oh, that
Well,
bitch is crazy. It's like, bro, if you're
well,
taking the
what I
time
just
to
what
better
I just
yourself,
said is, we're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of what other people are going to think about us and stuff. So, most of the time we don't want to talk about those type of things,
I mean, there was a
which is
point in
normal.
time in my life where, I was like, oh, they probably think about this. Now, I don't give a
Yeah, I
shit
hear you.
because I've been through enough experience as an individual to be like, you know what, your opinion of me has no reflection on me.
Yeah,
And, it's just not even about that anymore. But I get it.
yeah.
And that could be the primary reason a lot of people don't talk about, what they're going through. But if anything,
Mm,
especially in the world now, that's what we need
mm.
more of. We need that human connection and the
Oh,
humanity
I
aspect.
agree.
I mean, we talked
Yeah,
about that in
we're
the
supposed to help
previous.
each other.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said too, a majority of people are just selfish nowadays, out for themselves. They want to go step on the next person and get it, a notch
Yeah,
above.
no doubt.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, that was good. We
Yeah.
talked about a lot of shit.
Yeah, I mean, and for anybody who's watching, we're going to do some more. We're going to be putting out a lot more content on a regular basis now. We both just had things going on in our lives that we needed to address and deal with, and then kind of, plan more, kind of make our plans going forward. But I feel like today we should kind of just wrap it up. I don't want it to be super, super long. And, what do you think?
Not for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just excited we got this third episode down. I mean,
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
couple
And
months, but
again, we're having conversations. And again, for anybody who's watching, we don't go off any script. That's why we kind of bounce around and stuff. We try to have genuine conversations and keep it real. And we welcome anybody's comments, opinions, give us some feedback, please.
yeah,
How do with these same type of topics in your life, what are your feelings? What are your thoughts? What are your experiences? That's the type of stuff that we want to hear. We don't have a huge following. We're hoping to eventually, have more followers and people share our stuff and, see what people think. We're trying to start conversations and talk about real issues in life and, things that affect each and every one of us. I mean, yes, we're both men, but, most of the stuff we're talking about affects everyone, men, women, all of us. So again, if you could leave us some comments, share our stuff, tell people about us. We really appreciate it. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we pride ourselves on authenticity, so we expect the same in return. If you got a comment or a topic you want to throw out at us on our YouTube channel, Me and Pops Unplugged, leave
Or
a
even,
comment.
or even, yeah, and even a topic, like you said, an idea for, a discussion, like, we'd take all suggestions, of course.
Yeah, and we'll keep that in strong consideration. But other than that, Pops, appreciate you.
Yeah,
Third
love you
episode of
too.
Me and Pops Unplugged. We appreciate you guys tuning in. If you
Yeah.
stayed this long, great. Please subscribe. It's not about viewership, but if it resonates with you, you're getting some value. We appreciate it. And
Yeah.
with that,
Support. That's all it comes down to, support. Let's help each other.
well, appreciate you guys tuning in. And we'll keep you updated on episode 4 coming soon. And other than that, Pops, appreciate you.
Yep. Appreciate you too. Love you.
Love you.
All right. Peace, y'all.
Peace.